Sorry.
So there's several areas on cardiovascular disease we can look at. Probably the one we think most of is what? What, pardon? Hypertension. Yeah, hypertension is known as the what killer? Yeah. And as we talked last night, there's several things that can cause hypertension. And so you want to identify those and take those away for the hypertension to go away. I had a person while here sent me a text. They're having hypertension and they want to know what they could take to address the hypertension. You can take things to address hypertension, but the key is you want to figure out the cause and remove the cause. The number one cause, as we talked about last night, we'll review those. One cause of hypertension in America is stress. You have stress, cortisol goes up, potassium goes down. That causes hypertension. Number two is dehydration. When you're dehydrated, the blood is thicker and it's stickier. The viscosity is higher, so it's going to take more pressure to pump that thicker fluid. When you're dehydrated, the brain doesn't have adequate hydration. Therefore, you're more prone then to the first problem, stress. When you're dehydrated, the kidneys don't work as well. And the kidneys have to have water. Think of a hydroelectric dam. You have the more flow of water through the turbines, the more electricity you have. And so to have good kidney function, you have to have good water flow. And the issue there is that the kidneys are the switches that regulate blood pressure. So if a kidney function isn't good, then you can have blood pressure issues. The next one is when you're dehydrated, the hypothalamus identifies you're in a drought and it tells the body to withhold fluids. When you hold fluids, then what happens is through urination that you get rid of sodium. And so now your sodium level goes up because you're not urinating as much to get the sodium out. Well, when the sodium goes up, then that affects conductivity. And we'll talk about that in just a minute on the sodium conductivity. But let's talk about the dehydration and how it affects conductivity. Let's go back to chemistry class. Remember in chemistry class, when the professor had a flask and he had a light bulb and a wire, and he plugged the light bulb in. And the neutral was solid, but the hot wire he stuck down in the flask. Would the light come on? It's air, so there's nothing to go across the two wires, so the light won't go on. He then pours in distilled water. Is there going to be conductivity in distilled water? No. So still the light bulb will not light. So then the professor takes salt and he starts pouring the salt in. Now you also be familiar with salinity here with the ocean. So the more salt, the higher the salinity. Therefore, so when he starts pouring salt, the bulb will come on. And the more salt he put in, the brighter the bulb got because the higher the salinity. Then he went and stopped, and then he started pouring distilled water in again. And what happened to the light? Because the salinity went down. The same thing is true in our body. It's called conductivity. And the two major items that I find that I work with that affect conductivity is hydration and salt. So the more dehydrated you are, the higher the current is in the body. Does that make sense?
Yep.
The more salt you have, the higher the current in your body, if that makes sense. Your salinity goes up. The higher the current, the more prone you are to hypertension and cardiovascular disease. So if you have a high conductivity, how do you lower conductivity in the body?
Drink more water.
Drink more water and less salt. Boom, it's fixed. So simple. It's so simple. And so water hydration is very important for hypertension in all those different ways. The third leading cause of hypertension is obesity. Now, there's a lot of research on obesity. And so coming into ideal body weight is very important. Again, whether you follow the BMI, body mass index.
That needs plugged in, I think.
Pardon?
HDMI is not.
Let me bring this up first, I'll put her in. Okay, so this is the BMI chart. And it's kind of hard to see. You've got the person's height here on the left. Healthy weight is in the green. Unhealthy overweight is in the yellow. The orange is obesity. And the red is extreme obesity. I had a guy come in. This guy is in his mid-60s. And he's probably around that 5'9", 5'8", 5'9". And when you look at his weight, it was over here. So what would you say his situation is?
It's dangerous.
So is he healthy, overweight, obese, or extreme obesity?
Extreme.
But when I would go up to him and I would pinch him, he could get in the track.
His bodybuilder.
He was a preacher. And I don't agree with this. This is what he did. He would break the world's record, the Guinness Book of World Record, at least once a year, if not twice a year. He was into martial arts. And he would break blocks, boards. I mean, you put it in front of him, he could break it. And this guy looked like a bull. I mean, he was just. That's why I don't like BMI. But most people are not like this man. This man was just, the cool thing about what he did though, because he was the world's best in breaking stuff with martial arts, he would go to Malaysia, Indonesia, and those countries over there, and he could proselytize. It's illegal. You get your head chopped off. If you know what proselytizing is, sharing the gospel. It's illegal. But because he was the best in the world, they didn't touch him. And he could talk about Jesus. That was a good one. But the normal person, we're not like him. You know, this guy was just a massive bull of just muscle. But most people, let's say you got a 6-foot person, so ideal body weight is from 140 to 177. Now, according to Duke University, which also Agatha Thrash also recommended this, is you don't want a BMI of 24 because you're just one cruise, one Christmas, one birthday, one Thanksgiving. You're over there. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And so Dr. Thrash would say, run a BMI of 23. So does Duke University. Say, no, one right here. Because if you have a fun time, you're here. But you can usually control it to here, and you don't go out of control to here. So when you go to here, then when you get back home, or whatever, you can bring her back down to the safety zone. And the middle is right here between 155 and 154, 162. So you find how tall you are, and then you say, I want to be right here, somewhere in here is where you want to be. That's body mass index. But let's look at another one. So based on the person's age, you want to be, and now this is for men and women are different because we're built different. With breasts, women have a higher percent body fat. So you've got here's the man's age, here's your percent body fat, and here's lean, ideal, average, and over fat. So how do you figure this thing out? Well, you can kind of look at yourself and figure where you're going to be. Or you can go down to what is the old way of doing it? You would pardon?
Floating?
You would put them in a tube and drop them in the tube and look at how much water displacement there was. That's the most accurate. But for years we would go and take a fat caliper
Mm-hmm.
and pinch people. But don't pinch people no more. Don't you touch me. And so we don't pinch people anymore. And so now we have a machine that is electrical that you can stand on. You can buy them at Walmart. It's a scale you can stand on. And it also will send a current up through your body and tell you what percent body fat you are. Or you can go down to the gym and get them, and you can hold on to this like Omron thing. Brand is Omron. And it will go through your hands and it will tell what percent body fat you are. The gym has those machines. Usually most gyms have that. But you can go down and just get a regular scale at Walmart, stand on it. It will, and it will, you can tell what your percent body fat is a day. Now, if that gentleman, he would have had a very low ideal body weight, percent body fat, because it was muscle. He didn't have that body fat. So does that make sense? Okay. So as you look at weight, you can either look at the BMI, mass index. That's what most medicine uses. But if you're going to sports medicine uses the percent body fat because that's more on the sports side. So ideal body weight is one of the items you want to look at for hypertension coming in ideal body weight. Number 4 is kidney function. Do you have good kidney? Are you in renal failure? Does a person have renal failure? If the person has renal failure, the Duke diet that we talked about earlier, that rice diet, adding on to that, exercise is very, very important for reversing renal failure. Adequate water is important. Now, the challenge with adequate water and renal failure is a lot of folks, they're nephrologists, if they're in bad shape, they'll say, I don't want you having more than 1,200 cc's, something, 1,000 cc's. And so you're kind of locked in if the person's, needing to follow that nephrologist. The goal is don't let it get that bad and drink the water that you need, and it helps to reverse the renal failure. Corn silk. Y'all know what corn silk is. Who shipped corn? Think of the truckloads of corn silk we've thrown away over the years shipping corn. Corn silk is the best medication for the kidneys. My great-grandfather, when in 1958, he was around 70, 72, something like that. And he went down to Chattanooga from Dayton Mountain, which was just up the road, from the school that we talked about earlier. And he went down to Chattanooga, and granddad was a veterinarian. Before that, he was a nurse. He worked for Kellogg at Battle Creek as a nurse, and then left Battle Creek and went and got this veterinarian. Granddad self-diagnosed himself with renal failure, so he went down to Chattanooga to see could anything be done. It was 1958. There was no dialysis back in 1958. And so the doctor there in Chattanooga said, Dr. Smith, he said, there's nothing we can do for you. With renal failure, you're going to die. Went back up the mountain. So Granddad went back up the mountain and he drank corn silk tea. Granddad was 70, 72, something like that. Granddad lived to 105.
Wow.
And
What's silk?
corn silk, you know,
Is it us?
it's that hair
The
stuff.
hair stuff, okay.
Like-
And so, the sad thing is I would listen to Granddad about natural things until I went to school and started taking healthcare my freshman year at SMC. And then I thought, no, they're teaching that Granddad that's crazy stuff. That's not real stuff. And so from 18 years old up to when he died, I thought Granddad's stuff was just crazy stuff. And it wasn't until later on that I found out I was the crazy stuff. And Granddad had the real stuff and worked better than what we were using. And so now when a person comes in with renal failure, we use corn silk, and that's common now in lifestyle health. And the other one that you want to add to that is dandelion root. Dandelion root, renal failure. You want to add, as I mentioned last night, you want to add to that coenzyme Q10, and you want to add activated charcoal, which activated charcoal, again, is the number one use of activated charcoal in the United States is water purification. The charcoal aids the body in pure water purification, which kidneys do. Takes that load off the kidneys. I had a young girl come in, 33 years of age, on dialysis, significant renal failure. She'd been on dialysis since she was 15 years of age. She'd had a reaction to some medication, and her kidney function ceased. So she came and asked, can I do something? Her phosphorus was crazy high. Her potassium was crazy high. Her creatinine was 11. So I shared with her what I just shared with y'all. She chose only to do just the Duke diet. She did it for 30 days. In 30 days, her potassium was normal. Her phosphorus was normal. And her creatinine went from 11 to 6.
What's creatinine?
Creatinine is a lab indicator out of the kidneys.
Hmm.
I don't know what would have happened if she continued. At 30 days, she got a letter saying that she was approved for a kidney, and she went for another kidney, and she stopped the program. I don't know how much better she may have gotten. But still, moving a creatinine from 11 to 6 in 30 days is not bad. Plus bringing that phosphorus and the
What is that normal? What is the normal
for
creatinine?
creatinine, what, less than 2 usually? Yeah.
Does it normally move slow like the A1C?
Yeah, it doesn't usually go that fast. No. Yeah, that was good and fast. Yeah. So kidney function is important for hypertension. The next one is how much salt you're eating. Are you eating a lot of salt? Again, the problem is not as much the Himalayan or the Celtic. The big problem is the little girl with the umbrella. That's the little girl with the umbrella. Yes. The Morton's salt, that table salt. That's a problem. It is true that you need adequate sodium. There's a gentleman here earlier today who said that, he has to make sure he has adequate sodium. That is true. When a person's juicing, they're doing a long-term juice. They may have, it's rare, but their sodium can drop. The way you prevent that is having 4 stalks of celery in each of your juices, and your sodium will be fine. Don't usually see it before 21 days, but when you're going for the 20-day juice fast, it's not many, but you can have some people once in a while has a sodium that drops. And so you do this 4 stalks of celery in each one, you'll be fine. The next item for hypertension is atherosclerosis, which is clogged arteries. If you have a garden hose and you want to have more pressure to the garden hose to wash your car, what do? Put a smaller orifice. You shrink the amount of area that the water's coming out. That will increase pressure. So when you have a lumen that was like this, and now it's like this, because of clogged arteries on the sides, that pressure is going to go up. So you've got to get rid of that plaque buildup. According to Esselstyn, and who's ever heard of Dr. Esselstyn at Cleveland Clinic, you can do that within usually 1.5 to 2 years if you use a whole food, plant-based diet with variety. Some people may not have 2 years or 1.5 years. Is there a way of turbocharging it? And the answer is yes. And that is lecithin granules. There's soy lecithin, and there is sunflower lecithin. And the lecithin granules, I had a lady come in from New York, both carotids were at 75% occlusion, and within 2 months, they were at 25% occlusion. And we just did a tablespoon twice a day. At that time, I only knew it twice a day, but now we found that 3 times a day is fine. And so it's even more effective. Lecithin granules, I call it Drano. It looks like Drano. It dissolves the plaque, and it works quite well. What can you use it for? It can be cardiac. It can be vessels in the heart. It can be carotid. It can be a man with ED. The number 1 cause of ED is circulation. It's usually atherosclerosis. And a good urologist, when a man goes in with ED, is going to send that man also to the cardiologist to see, is it also happening here, which is more important, the heart to be okay. So that works extremely well. To put that together with the whole food plant-based diet, use the lecithin granules, and we can see the atherosclerosis melt away. Hardening of the arteries, arteriosclerosis, which is usually due to atherosclerosis, so do the same thing. And that can help with artery. And how does arteriosclerosis work? If you have a pump that's like a bilge pump, have you ever seen a pump that you're pumping out of a creek goes? You ever seen one of them pumps? That's how the heart works. It's not a constant spray like out of a fire truck. It's called a bilge pump. That's how our heart works. And so every time it pumps, the pressure is higher. And so if you have it to a hose and the pump does this every time it pumps, but it's elastic, is the pressure is it maintained? Not as much when you have movement in the pipe versus if you have a pipe that's rigid. If the pipe is rigid, you're going to have a higher pressure when the pump is going. Well, that's what happens with the heart. When you have rigidity or hardening of the arteries, your pressure is going to go up because right now your vessels move. But if you have hardening of the arteries, it's rigid, and your inside pressure is going to be higher. And so that's why arteriosclerosis is a problem. Another problem is heart function. Is there cardiac issues that's causing it? There's a fellow, he's a physician in our area, doesn't understand any of this that we've been talking about yesterday or today, but he did find that something called hawthornberry does lower blood pressure, and he liked it better than drugs. And so he's just a drug right doc, but if you have high blood pressure, he's going to give you hawthornberry. Remember, hawthornberry has a half-life of 4 hours. So you can't take it once a day. It would be sufficient all day long. So you want to take it, 4, 5 times a day, depending on how long you're up. But every 4 hours, you want to take your hawthorn berry. Hawthorn berry has the effect of 3 different types of blood pressure medicine. Back several years ago, it's about time to do it again. Every 5 years, the American Heart Association gets together and they look at the recommendation on medication for cardiovascular disease. And what they found is they were given 2 different types of blood pressure medicine. And a lot of patients were saying, well, I'll just take one, I won't take the other. And the doc wanted them to take both of them. But the patient didn't want to take both of them, they'd only take one. So about 5 years ago, the recommendation was, let's put those medicines together. Give the patient just one medicine. And they don't realize that they're getting 2 together. Well, this pharmacy, God's pharmacy, has 3 of them together. And that's hawthorn berry. Now, God's pharmacy spelled different. Instead of a P, it starts with an F. Instead of the pharmaceutical E. Again, if you have cardiac issues, you want to do the Duke diet, which is the brown rice diet. Also, to improve that issue of the heart function is CoQ10. And that also helps out heart function. Garlic is good for heart function. And so those are the items we do for hypertension and find it works very, very well. Exercise also is important there, as we talked, and getting your sleep. All 8 laws are important. So do you think that sunshine could help your hypertension? Does it help the brain work better? Does it help with stress? When you see how fresh air, all the items we talked about today are going to affect brain function. Brain function affects stress. And so all those 8 items we talked about today are very important. So that's blood pressure. If you have really high blood pressure, I was in a class one day and there was a man came up to me and he says, can you check my blood pressure? I think it's a little high. I said, sure. So I checked his blood pressure. It's like 218, 222, somewhere around there. Over 130 something. And his face wasn't red. He looked fine. I said, it's normal. Yeah, it does this every once in a while. Pretty regularly, he said. So, okay. So I had a couple of friends there that were physicians. So I asked one of them to come over. One that was more into what we do versus the other one, which was just learning, which is now more into it. But at that time was not yet. And I said, you know, check this blood pressure for me. It's always good to have 2 people check it. And he checked it and he goes, yeah. He says, let's get some cayenne. And so we happened at a place that we were doing some lifestyle herbal remedies. So he went and got him some cayenne, stuck a butter knife in there to open up, dumped some under his tongue. So let's see what that does. But significantly came down. The systolic was around in the upper 180s. That was improvement. The diastolic had dropped on down towards 100. He goes, that's not good enough. So another poured it under his tongue. Said, let's see what that does. Down even more. Pepper. It's a vasodilator. Yeah. I have people who will come and buy cayenne pepper extract. Tell me it works better than nitroglycerin. Vasodilator. But the interesting thing though is cayenne pepper will cauterize bleeding.
Yeah.
So if you're cut, if you have ulcers, it will stop the bleeding. But also, if you've ever read any of Dr. Dense's work, has anyone ever read Dr. Dense's work? where he used cayenne pepper for cardiac arrest, where it was very effective. I had taught a nurse a number of years ago about using cayenne pepper for cardiac arrest, and she was doing some home care on a man who had a cardiac arrest, and she called 911. And she's a BS nurse, and she knew, obviously there's no pulse, no breathing, and she went, and after she called 911, she ran to the kitchen, his house, where she took care of him, grabbed some cayenne, put it under his tongue, and she told me it worked. I've never seen that. I've never done that myself. I've always, I've never had the opportunity out, because when I usually deal with that kind of thing, which I deal with it a lot, but it's in the EMS side or the fire side, and I can't go dumping cayenne pepper and poke it out of people's tongues. And so I'm usually doing CPR and that guy, or a lot of Narcan. The other day, we had a guy that got in a fight with his girlfriend. So he decided to end his life. He got drunk and took a bunch of morphine, and he has morphine. And a Narcan would last about 5 minutes. Between what we used and what the helicopter used and what they used at UT was 29 doses of Narcan. It's a lot of Narcan. But a week or two later, he comes by the office and thanked Walter. He lived. He did. He lived. So that is hypertension.
I got a question.
Yes.
Barbara Hill talks about Celtic salt. Like she said, when they come to me and they have high blood pressure, I put them on Celtic salt. Can you explain why?
Mineralization. She's after the mineralization. And there's difference in opinions on Celtic salt. Barbara's huge on Celtic salt side. Mary Lou and I like Celtic salt. Tastes a whole lot better than Himalayan. I have one professor, he would tell us that the Himalayan, the Celtic was 7 times worse than the Himalayan from a hypertensive standpoint. That was his opinion. I never saw the science to back it up, but definitely the Celtic and Himalayan are a whole lot better than the table salt, the mortal stuff. But Barbara's after the mineralization.
Okay.
Triglycerides. When you look at triglycerides, the first thing I look at is stress. Stress raises triglycerides. Number 2 is oil. We had a family come to us, and we were doing a class, and she was a 14-year-old Colombian girl from South America. Triglycerides were out the roof, just out the roof. We do labs at the beginning, labs at the end of our classes. So I asked the mother, is she under a lot of stress? No. Does she eat meat? No. Another item is sugar. Sugar is another reason that we see high triglycerides. Does she eat a lot of sugars? No. I said, what about oil? And she goes, that's it. Have you ever seen husbands that when they sit down at the table and you set the food out in front of them, no matter how much you season it, he'll go and pour salt on it? You ever seen that kind of people? Yeah. No matter how her mama cooked, girl would pour olive oil on it. I said, okay, so for the next 4 weeks, hers was either a 4 or 5 week protocol given her. I think it was 4. And I said, no oil. And 4 weeks later, we checked her triglycerides again, and they were normal. Olive oil, just good old extra virgin cold pressed olive oil, shot her triglycerides up. Another item, as I just mentioned, is sugar. A person who eats a lot of sugar that will raise triglycerides. And the other item for triglycerides is eating meat. Meat will raise triglycerides.
Is that more than the fat?
Pardon?
Is that because of the fat?
Yes, I would say it is. So dairy would be the same issue. Dairy would be the same issue. So what do we do for that? One, take that stuff away. There is something called cholesterol pro. It comes from a fruit. It's made by the company Now, and it does lower triglycerides. But the best way is address the stress, address the sugar, address the oil, address the fats. And so you can see when we do the Duke diet, where they're eating the fruit, the brown rice, the salad with no fats, and the brown rice. They're exercising 4 times a day. They're going to bed on time. They're drinking plenty of water. They're not getting any sugar. And there's a whole lot less stress. They're exercising a lot. They're going to bed on time. They're not eating any of the foods with fats in it. There's no sugar. You can see why the triglycerides comes down, because we've taken it away. Cholesterol. Best way to lower cholesterol is to quit eating cholesterol. We talked about that last night. And what has cholesterol? Anything that has a mom. If it's got a mom, a mother, a mom, we call it mother's mom.
Okay.
If it has a mom, a mother, it's going to have cholesterol. If it, does, so let's look at it. Would you like to guess what my favorite sandwich is? No,
Grilled cheese.
no,
Say,
pardon?
just like
Something southern cucumber.
Tomato sandwich.
it's.
Tomato sandwich.
Yeah.
Y'all know what maters are, don't you?
Yep.
Yes, tomato. Call it maters, maters.
Now, lots of mayonnaise.
Well,
Cheese.
And sugar.
so,
No, that's all never been.
so Mary Lou will make me a tomato sandwich. And I use a millet flax bread. And she'll toast it and put that, a couple pieces of tomato on there, pickle, and always good. And she'll put a little bit of Celtic sea salt on it. Let's look at that sandwich. Let's say she put, let's look at not what Mary Lou does, but the typical tomato sandwich or BLT. Does the bread have a mama? Okay, we'll come back to the bread. Does the Hellman's or Kraft mayonnaise have a mama? What? Got the chicken.
Egg.
Does a tomato have a mama?
No.
Okay. Does the slice of cheese have a mama?
Yes.
Does the bacon have a mama?
Yes.
Bacon, that's right. Does the salt have a mama?
No.
Does the pickle have a mama?
No.
So now you see. But let's go back to the bread. Yes. So as I mentioned last night, Dr. William Davis, a cardiologist, well-known cardiologist, started studying this fact back in 1990, 33 years ago. And he found that the American wheat raises the LDL, the 42 chromosome fluid. Now, if you're getting the jovial wheat out of Italy, which is 14 chromosomes, he found that does not raise the LDL. So that can cause, so if it's got a mama, it can raise cholesterol because it has cholesterol in it. The wheat can raise LDL. There's another item. I was noticing that our patients, their HDLs were falling faster than other lifestyle centers. That's why you collect numbers. That's why you trend. That's why you benchmark and compare yourself with others. And our HDLs were dropping faster than other people's HDL and other lifestyle centers.
Is that good or bad?
It's bad.
Okay.
The HDL is the good cholesterol.
Heavenly.
The HDL is like the cop. He goes, finds the LDL, the bad guys, puts handcuffs on them and takes them to jail. And so when you lower the HDL, you're reducing your costs. And therefore you can have more bad guys, more LDL. So we were trying to figure out why was our HDLs dropping more than the other locations? Well, as we observed, we found that we were doing a lot more cashews than the other lifestyle centers. Cashew cream, cashew gravy, cashew butter, cashew cheese, cashew loaf, cashew milk. I mean, and it is true, cashews are richer. It's all tastes better. And as we were teaching people to cook healthy, the dietitian used a lot of cashews in the food to make it taste like milk, so she'd appeal to their tongues. This is before I learned about the Duke program, and I totally left that and went to the Duke diet. So I said, okay, let's discontinue cashews and let's use almonds instead if you need to use almonds or whatever, but we're not using cashews anymore in the kitchen. Immediately, our HDLs in the next group of patients, it did not drop. Actually, it didn't drop. It dropped as bad as the other places because they were using some cashews. So we found the problem. Everything was fine until about 6 months later. I noticed in the labs, again, you gotta monitor your outcome indicators. I noticed our HDL started dropping again, worse and worse and worse. Finally, I went to the dietary and I said, "Are you using cashews again?" And it was like a kid with their hand in because and there's all kinds of excuses. We talked about that today. Excuses. Adam had excuses. Eve had excuses. Remember talking about that in Sabbath school today. How did you know? The labs told me. The labs tell on you. They do. The labs are going to tell on you.
So do you consider cashews unhealthy?
In moderation, they're okay.
Yeah.
But we weren't doing moderation.
You were doing excessive
We were
amounts of
doing
cashew.
too much.
I see.
Yeah. See, cashew is not even a nut.
No.
It's a flower.
It's
And
a what?
a flower.
A flower.
Yes, flower. Flower. Yeah.
Flower.
Yeah. Like we got a piece of paper that's a flower.
Far.
And then we got a flower that you
Flower.
you got a flour that you make bread out of. It's all the same word. Now that's just if you're flatland. Now, mountaintop, it'd be a flour.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, we call it flour in the mountains, but it's flour down in Alabama. Like a tire.
The
You got a fire tire? Or fire tire, you climb up to look for fires. On the mountain, it's far tar. We go up, look for fires and the tar. And the tar is just like the tar that's on your car. You roll it.
The tire.
And that's a tar, yeah. But also there's tar that you put on the road. Yeah. Need a sentence to know what you're talking about.
There you go.
Yes.
Lots of education tonight. Thank you.
In case you come visit, you'll know. So,
I guess the thing about the cashew.
Moderation.
so in moderation, and what happened, they were not doing cashews in moderation. They were doing the cashew in abundance.
Mhm.
Almost every meal we were having something cashews.
Mm.
It was too much. And so it caused the HDL to lower. And so I said, no more cashews because we can't do it in moderation. If you can do cashew in moderation, it'll be fine. But a lot of cashews to make the food rich. Again, cashew butter, cashew milk, cashew gravy, cashew loaf, cashew cheese, all those guys. And that's what we were doing. It's just too much. And the HDL dropped too much. Therefore, cholesterol goes up.
Peanut butter.
Butter. Pine nuts are not a nut, they're a legume. But pine nuts, the first thing to look at on pine nuts is mold. If you're,
How do you know it's jar, it's sealed, it's closed? It's
Yeah.
that thing when you open it.
Yeah. You don't know. You don't know. Pine nuts are a great way to gain weight.
I love peanut butter.
Yeah, I do too. Pine nuts are an excellent way to gain weight. So if you have a person that's wanting to lose weight, they don't want pine nuts because the peanuts, you'll gain weight on pine nuts. Now, this is an interesting one. So if I do this with kids and I have a bunch of kids stand up here. And in your mind's eye, figure about 10 kids lined up here. And I say, okay, now I want you to line up based on your height, from the tallest to the shortest. And then you got Jimmy, and you got Bobby. Jimmy's taller than Bobby, so there's a comma. But Bobby and Sammy are the same height. And so you say Bobby and Sammy are the same height. But Sammy is taller than Susie, so there's a comma between Sammy and Susie. You got it?
Yeah.
The same thing's true on ingredients. If there's a comma, see, in ingredients, the first item is the most. The last item is the least. The comma and the and are very important. If there's a comma, the prior item is more, the second item is less. But if they're the and, they're the same. Go home and read your Jif peanut butter. What is the first item in Jif peanut butter? Peanuts. What's the second item in Jif peanut butter? Sugar. The question is there a comma or is there an and? There's an and. So you could legally call it sugar butter.
Just as much.
There's as much sugar as there is peanuts. And so when you look at peanut butter, look at like Smucker's peanut butter. Y'all have Smucker's peanut butter?
Oh.
Okay. Smucker's is roasted peanuts, comma, less than 1% salt. Now that's okay. That's a lot healthier for you. And so if you do get peanut butter, read your ingredients because you might be eating a bunch of sugar.
A question back on the cashews. Is there any difference between the raw and roasted?
I don't know.
Okay.
I can't answer that because we were getting the raw and they were being cooked in some way.
Sure.
But I don't think they were, I don't know about the roasted. Yes.
They're all cooked, but one is more cooked than the other.
Okay, you're right. They are all cooked or they're poisonous.
They're poison, they'll kill you otherwise.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you even taste the nut, it's so poisonous, it's got all these chemicals enveloped on it. If you even take a bite of that thing, you'd never forget the taste.
That is true. So Mary Lou, when they made the cashew butter and those items, do you think they were raw or were they roasted?
When
They were raw.
they say
Okay.
raw, it's not.
It's not really raw.
Yes, that's exactly right. He's right.
Yeah.
I've forgotten it. But I don't know about how much the extra amount roasted is. I don't know. It's based on what Mary Lou was saying, because she would know what the recipes are. Yeah.
I had cashews once used also.
They're a fruit.
Oh, no, not exactly.
No?
No, I found this out on Jeopardy.
Yes?
They're on a category on themselves.
Really?
They're not a fruit or a nut, because
Really?
they're both fruit and nut.
It's interesting.
Because it comes in the bell-shaped fruit and there's a nut right
Yeah.
below it.
Then they have to heat it up.
And the only way you can get the thing out,
You
the
can
way
eat the
we
fruit,
to do it back home is to burn that whole cashew when we make charcoal. so that all the poison will be out of it and be like a charcoal, and you crack it and the nut will be just perfect.
Now, where was that you grew up?
Oh, Philippines.
In the Philippines?
Because they
Okay.
have lots of cashew over there. As a kid, it was a commodity.
That's interesting. So it's a whole different item, not a
It's
fruit
a
or nut.
whole different category, not a fruit or a nut.
That's interesting.
But also in coconut is not different stages in a coconut. It could be a fruit, it could be a nut, and it could be a vegetable.
Really?
Yeah, so it's like different stages due to the different sugar.
Yeah.
Different oils.
Ain't God amazing?
And I know I already showed it to the guys, shared to the guys, but you can't eat coconut if you're vegetarian.
Oh, yeah.
Because it has a face on.
Oh, that's true. Got a mom.
You know, about the tomato, tomato, everybody thought it was a vegetable. But
Yeah, it is. And you know why it was classified
wow,
that way? It was classified that way because of taxes. And back years ago, fruits and vegetables have different tax. And so the farmers actually got it taxed as the lower to be able to sell more. Yes, they, yeah. Anyway, we'll get back online.
Okay.
So if you have high cholesterol, one cut out the guys from calls, cholesterol will go up. Anything that has a mama and has a face on it. Look at the wheat and look at the cashews. Well, is there anything natural that we can take for it? There's several things. A lot of folks use red yeast rice. And that's what I first started using. But the problem with red yeast rice is a natural statin. Now, what's the problem with a statin?
I don't know.
Let's say this is a tree. And we hew around a tree. What will happen to the tree?
He dies.
Will die. Now, I got this illustration from a NASA astronaut / medical doctor. He's the guy who discovered this. So you hew around a tree, the tree is going to die. The statin drug hews around the tree. One of the branches on the tree is the body's production of cholesterol. So now your body's not producing, so now you're living on pig cholesterol, cow cholesterol, goat cholesterol, fish cholesterol, instead of human cholesterol that we're made to run off of. But here's the problem. There's another branch on that tree, and that branch makes something called coenzyme Q10. CoQ10 is very important for cell wall stability, oxygenation, just really important for the body to function. You just shut down the production on CoQ10. And if you're taking a statin drug, you had better be taking CoQ10 because you need it for your body to function. But here's the problem with NASA. There's another branch on that tree, and that branch produces a chemical that aids in short-term memory. Astronauts were having short-term memory loss. And they said that's not an option. You get up and you hear they're taking off and the astronaut can't remember.
It's not good.
Not good. Yeah, yeah. So as I'm listening to this astronaut teach, he, again, astronaut / medical doctor, he said, we had to make a change on statin drugs. We had to look at something else because we can deal with the CoQ10 by adding coenzyme Q10 as a supplement, but they didn't know what to do with this short-term memory loss thing. So those statins lower cholesterol, they have a side effect. Well, red yeast rice is a natural statin. It also causes the body to quit producing coenzyme Q10. Not a good thing. So if you take red yeast rice, you've got to take the CoQ10. I do not know whether it affects the short-term memory issue. I haven't seen any research on that, but I have a question. So then there's a product called Cholesterol Pro, which is a fruit. I forgot what fruit it is. You remember? I don't remember the name of the fruit. It's from another country, and it will raise HDL, which then lowers LDL, and it also increases, it lowers triglycerides. So it lowers triglycerides, raises HDL, and that's then going to lower LDL. So you're lowering your cholesterol and you're lowering your triglycerides. So that's a great product. There's another product that is called Listeril. And it's by the same company that makes the Allison that I use. And it's garlic. It's a very strong garlic. And it also lowers cholesterol. So there's several options for lowering cholesterol. All I did was just quit eating animals. I quit eating animals. I went from 288 to 104. So that's a big one. Yes.
Is it now,
Yes.
okay, cholesterol pro tablets now? Okay. What was your question?
What's the fruit? Does it say what
Yeah,
fruit it is?
I'll find out.
Okay.
Yeah. But, you know, Costco stuff, I buy was get in abundance cheaper, things like that. There's so many CoQ10 choices. What do you recommend?
You want to look at yeah, you want to find a company that is a good quality company that doesn't have a lot of preservatives.
Walmart, just,
Yeah, they can have.
It's nature made.
Pardon?
Nature made. I've heard that recommended that.
Yeah, there's just, we can talk about that one. That's getting into more stuff.
Okay.
Yes,
You know anything about amyloid powder?
amyloid powder. Yes, we use amyloid powder. Yeah,
I've heard that really helps like drop the alpha lipoprotein A and helps drop cholesterol
okay,
dramatically.
okay. I haven't used that for cholesterol, so I need to look at that. Yeah. Good, thank you. The other one is just heart function. Let's say you have a person that has poor heart function.
It's bergamot.
Bergamot, okay, bergamot.
What's that?
Bergamot is the fruit.
Can you spell that?
You don't spell it?
What?
G-A-O-N-T.
Yeah.
You want to do it again?
B-E-R-G-A-M-O-N-T.
Yes, bergamot. That's exactly what it is.
Bergamot.
Again, one of the items God gave us. And of course, and it doesn't cause the side effects. So let's talk heart function, just general heart function. Over the last 3 years, we've seen an increase in cardiomyopathy.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy. Kids, people who had no history, and boom, they have cardiomyopathy. That left ventricle was just well. You may have a person that has congestive heart failure. And if they have congestive heart failure, then they have potentially, they've got fluid buildup, either in the lungs and the lower legs. What do you do for that? Let's say they have a low ejection fraction. Ejection fraction is where your left ventricle squeezes. That's the left side, it's the big ventricle. The blood comes in here into the right atrium, goes down into the left ventricle, squeezes it up into the lungs to get oxygen, comes back into the left atrium, goes down to the left ventricle, and then the left ventricle has a massive muscle, squeezes it, sends it up out into the aorta. Who gets the first of the blood?
Your brain.
No.
Oh.
Brain. No. The heart. See, the blood in the heart chambers doesn't provide the heart blood. But right before it leaves the heart gets the first of the blood.
Makes sense.
Brain gets the second of the blood.
A worker's worth its wages.
Yes, very much so. And then it then goes out through to the rest of the body.
Oh, yeah.
So ejection fraction is where that left ventricle squeezes, but it never squeezes plumb closed. So the way you figure your ejection fraction, that's a percentage of how much is there when it's wide open to how much is there when it's closed. Again, it's not always fully closed. It's the amount, the percentage amount. But if you have a leaky valve, that can affect the percentage also. You want an ejection fraction? Oh, 55, 60, 65. What you want? A little over 2.5, 3 years, almost 3 years ago now. Mary started having problems with, I noticed her having problems with wheezing and some crackles. And when she would be sleeping, it's getting progressively worse. So it wasn't just some chronic thing. We're now looking more acute issues. So we looked at an x-ray and the radiologist says it's COPD. She had ever smoked, been around smoking. Her father smoked heavy. And so it was assumed it was due to that. So for 6 months, we addressed the lungs. But then it got bad. She couldn't do the stairs well at home. Extreme shortness of breath. She had swelling. She just didn't have any get up and go. So we looked at her. Her ejection fraction was a 10-15. That's not good. She had, her left ventricle was significantly enlarged. Her mitral valve had significant backflush. And so when that left ventricle squeezed to send it out the aorta, it was sending it back through the mitral valve into the atrium, left atrium, back to the lungs. So it was backflow. Significant. At that time, they said she would not live 12 months without a new mitral valve. The problem was to put a new mitral valve in, you have to have an ejection fraction at least 35%. And so if they put a mitral valve in, whether mechanical or animal, it would not have been enough pressure to open it up and she would have died. So that wasn't an option. We got different opinions from cardiologists from Knoxville to Asheville. So I called a guy in Southern Cal. You know how at Mayo Clinic they can work on a computer and do surgery and in another country or surgery? Well, this guy's the guy who helped develop that equipment. So I called him. He's a thoracic surgeon. And I said, here's the situation. Here's the numbers. Here's what we have. And he said, do not go back to Knoxville. Do not go back to Asheville. Go to Duke University. He said, they're going to kill her. So we went to Duke. Duke, we go there. And when they looked at her and saw what was going on, I'm sorry, not Duke, UAB, University of Alabama, Birmingham, UAB. And she keeps me straight. So we went down to UAB and they sent her straight to the transplant floor because they couldn't put a mitral valve in. And she couldn't. I mean, with an EF of 10-15, that's not too good. Literally, when you looked on the echo, that left ventricle, that's all the movement that left ventricle had. And he would not even allow her to be in the room without someone there. So we went over to the hospital and she couldn't do the drugs because the drug, her renal failure is fine. Her liver failure, she had no liver failure, no renal failure, no pulmonary failure, no hypertension. And so no medications, it would bottom out her blood pressure. And they just kept telling us, we don't know what to do with you. So we did a lot of observation. So I left her in Birmingham for 5 months with my son. And we started doing natural. And,
You didn't know what the cause was?
oh, I didn't tell you what caused it, did I?
Yeah, that.
Yeah, so they went in and looked and they did a heart cath. Expecting, they thought it was probably, some type of occlusion. And I said, no, it's something else because it's below, it's not reaching. And they came out and they said, well, we wish we were right. Have you ever taken this drug? She says, yes. They said, we can tell the damage on the left ventricle. It's from this specific drug.
Wow.
Have you ever taken it? Yes. Well, she had taken that drug 44 years before. It was a chemotherapy drug. She had, when she was 15, 16, she had leukemia. That was a chemotherapy drug. And that many years it took. Now, according to the University of Alabama at Birmingham, they said the average person after taking that drug, if they're going to go into heart failure, it's going to be within 10 years. But the longest they've ever seen was 25 years. She broke the record at 44 years. And they said that's because of her lifestyle. It's because it's why that heart kept going and finally said, that's it. And that drug took it out. So what did we do?
We gotta be.
Oh.
Okay. Can you hold it?
I put,
Is that him on there?
Nobody like it's thinking about it.
okay.
We'll watch it. We'll watch.
So here's what we did for her. We used hawthornberry. We used coenzyme Q10. For the edema, we did again, remember hawthornberry has a half-life of 4 hours. So you've got to do it every 4 waking hours. We did CoQ10 4 times a day. We did dandelion leaf. Dandelion leaf is phenomenal as a diuretic. And so that got rid of the congestion in the lungs, what I was hearing. It got rid of the edema on the ankles. We added L-carnitine, L-arginine. What else?
Holy.
Grape seed, vitamin C.
Grape seed, vitamin C, and vitamin C and MSM, again, to help with that mitral valve and that ink swelling. And we started seeing improvement. Well, we went there. May. In May, her ejection fraction is up to 35-40. It's enough to put in a mitral valve. But guess what? That left ventricle has shrunk so much that the leaflets of the mitral valve can now close. And they said she has barely any leaking. Well, women can have leaking more than men. And they said it's not even enough to worry about. So the mitral valve is no longer an issue. And they told us that she would not live 1 year because of the severity of that mitral valve. The size of the heart was at 6.1. It's now 5.0. Normal for her is 4.6. We're still not where I want it. I want to EF at least 55. So we got a little ways to go. So we're still working on it. So she gets a little winded sometimes, but she doesn't look like an EF of 35 right now. That's 35, 40. She's doing pretty good. So exercise was very important. Cardiac rehab was huge for her. We did magnesium. Did a lot of magnesium. Magnesium was very important. And also I've learned from a friend of mine, a physician up in Washington State, to use magnesium oil, or as y'all would say, oil.
I like your way.
But y'all know what it was.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yes. And so for Mary Lou, she'd tell me it's oil in the kitchen because she's from the Adirondacks. You have oil in wherever you want it. It's oil in my kitchen. For me, it's oil. So he had told me that if he has a patient that has angina, to use, or cardiac issues, to put magnesium oil transdermally, it goes faster than PO by mouth. You know, it's kind of like a nicotine patch or a nitrile patch. It goes quickly into the tissue. Magnesium oil goes very fast. And if he had a patient with angina, he would use magnesium oil and it would stop the angina. And so you can do a spray or you can do a roller ball. What's that? Yeah. So here, I'll tell you what to do. I don't like just plain 100%, but get a magnesium oil that has aloe vera with it.
Mhm.
And the itchy goes away. I agree with you. It's like a bunch of 1,000 centipedes all over.
Yeah.
So you get the magnesium oil with the aloe vera and it takes the itchy away. And we do that. So there's a number of things that you can do naturally to address cardiovascular. So here's, you know, a big cause of her, you know, down to an EF of 10, 15 was one, that very small movement of the left ventricle and looking, but also that significant backflush back through that mitral valve. Both of those together took it down to that 10, 15. But now we have the mitral valve pretty well closing. We have the left ventricle closing a whole lot better now. So we're seeing that coming back up. The diet, she was, you know, she wasn't a problem. It wasn't that she was eating hog jowl chitlins. I see people eat. She eats a healthy diet. And so, you know, it may not be diet. It can be something else that caused it to happen that way. And that's what really bothers me when we see medications be thrown on the market and not have research, experimental. And here's a drug that had been used so many years with a lot of research and 44 years, and they're still using that same drug today, knowing that it does that. But research is important. So to increase the, if you have issues of edema with congestive heart failure, what do you use for that?
Cut off the salt from.
Salt's a good one. What was it we used for the edema, for the lungs and for the legs?
You the hot tongue cream?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
The dandelion leaf. Yes. Now, if you're having renal problems, kidney problems, or liver problems, you want dandelion root. But if you're having congestive heart failure, you want dandelion leaf. Not that taking root's going to hurt you. You can do both of them.
How do you prepare the leaf?
You can just take the dry capsules, just the dry capsules. You can do like 3 capsules, 4 capsules, or you can make a tea or make an extract.
Milk thistle.
Milk thistle for the liver.
Yes.
Yes, milk thistle. I like the extract. It's very potent, but you can do the capsules, the extract, the tea, and along with the dandelion root. And that's what I use for the liver. Yes.
And fern, that fern, that's fern. Fennel.
Remember this one?
No, it's fennel.
Oh, fennel.
Fennel? 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 Fennel?
Fentanyl.
Fennel.
Fennel. FENNEL.
It's
Fennel.
it's a plant, fennel.
Fennel. Yeah, we use fennel for breastfeeding. Yeah. Breastfeeding is what we mostly use that one for. I'm not saying it's not for this, because the herbs are used for a lot of stuff. Yeah,
It's delicious.
yeah.
You can come back to me, Nancy. I don't want her to forget.
Dandelion leaf is like a diuretic.
Yes, like Lasix.
So if I can't take the place since I'm on Lasix, so I guess.
She didn't take the Lasix.
So
Does that answer your question?
where could we buy the dandelion?
Where would you buy it? Health food store.
Oh, yeah.
Natural? They have it natural.
Yes.
Nancy's still talking there. Did he understand your question?
Yeah, but I'm taking Lasix right now,
Yes.
so I could replace it myself. With.
This one I read. Yes, check with your doctor, the medical director.
Okay.
And who's the medical director?
God.
He's asking.
Who's the medical director?
Direct.
God.
Jesus.
The
God.
chief of staff.
Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, God.
Have you ever gone to buy a car or a house and pray?
Yes.
Yeah.
And did you ever have the feeling, I ain't the right one?
Yep.
Have you ever had the feeling, I feel good with that? Give you a story. Mary didn't know this until recently. She was sick down in Birmingham. For years, I've been wanting to get a Farmall in, Super M. Y'all know what a Farmall Super M is? Okay. When I was a boy, we had a Super M, MHC. And so I wanted a Farmall Super M for years to do hayride with the neighbor kids and my
Oh.
grandkids. And it's a tractor. I've got a cool Kubota tractor, but I wanted a tractor. That Kubota's orange. And I know I'm from Tennessee and orange is big. But I wanted a real tractor, a red tractor, not a red car truck. And so it's a good thing to go around and take the neighbor kids around, pay rides, and my grandkids. Right, find one. My customer came to me and he said, "Well, I found your tractor." Okay, it was down in Athens. So I called the man, sent me pictures of it, been rebuilt, repaint job, brand new tires on it, and actually exercise tires on the back. How much you want? The price of the tires. And he just put them on. Why? Well, I got me an M and I got me a Super M. My wife likes the M. She said, "Get rid of the Super M now." Get rid of it now. Give me the price of the tires. It's yours. And I'll even haul it up to you 2.5 hours away.
Whoa.
Wow.
Now, is that not a deal? That's a deal. I said, "Well, let me." Is that a good thing?
Yeah.
See, he lives in Tennessee too. We live in the Bible Belt. So he understood. Sure. So I prayed. I prayed for a week, thinking God would change his mind. Every time it was no. You know what I'm saying? You know what that feeling is? No. Finally, I called it man up a week later and I said, "Sir, I do not know why. God said no." He says, "I understand. Thank you." He understood. I don't know what religion. He could have been Baptist or Methodist, but he understood asking God. The same thing's true with your question you just had right now. You go to God and say, "Okay, God, I got two choices here. Tell me what to do."
Amen.
And he will tell you one way. People call me and say, "Walt, should I take chemotherapy or should I do natural?" I say, "I don't know." You need to ask God. If he tells you to take chemotherapy, do chemotherapy. If he tells you don't take chemotherapy, do what he says. You better do what God says.
Amen.
And so that would be my answer. Yes. And monitor it. See how you're doing. Let him be your physician.
So you can cut it and have, she's doing
Yeah.
back and start the data line.
And you could taper off. And what were your symptoms before?
Swelling in my legs.
Can you tell if their legs are swelling?
A little bit.
I was doing some continuing education one time. Two cardiologists were talking on when to put your patient on a blood thinner. One cardiologist, and this one guy kind of did like me, kind of come off on different stories. So he shared this story. He said, "I had this fellow. I told him it's time, Mr. So-and-so, you might want to start taking a blood thinner." And he said, "I'm not really taking one." And he said, "I looked at his chart. I hadn't ordered one. I looked, his attending had not ordered one." He said, "Did your attending order it for you and I just haven't got that information?" "No, sir." "Did you go to another doctor and they recommend you go on a blood thinner?" "No, sir." Who are you getting this blood thinner from? Someone else giving you pills? No, sir. Well, where are you getting it? Oh, wow. Yes, sir. What are you doing? He says, well, it's rat poison, ain't it? Or rat poison at the same time?
Oh, my.
Yes, sir. What do you do? He said, well, I just get my buck knife off every morning, cut me off a little bit, take it. He said, how do you know whether you're taking too much or not? He says, same thing you do. If I start to bruise a little bit, I cut back.
Man.
Watch your legs. You know what they are now. See if it improves. If it starts getting worse, it's not working. If you had congestion up here, you could hear it, but you don't even have that right now. Yeah.
My turn.
Yes.
So,
Now, I'm not recommending people go to the co-op and get
rat poison.
I promise I will not do
Yeah,
that.
do not give in.
so this is the third time that I'm gonna ask. Yes, we have a brother that is suffering from stage 4 cancer, and he's gone through chemo. He has just done just amazing, and as of today, when I spoke with his wife, the chemo is not doing, he wasn't getting sick, his labs, the numbers and everything went down. So now there's a change. Is there something? And we understand that God is in control, and they certainly are holding on to that. But is there something in your knowledge bank as far as roots and
Pancreatic cancer is very serious,
sure?
very fast. There are some things that you can do for pancreatic cancer. The first thing I do is Genema silvestri. Genema silvestri. It's an herb. Genema is the best herb I have found to support the pancreas and its function. Another thing I would do is hot and cold fomentations. Increases circulation to increase pancreatic function. Far infrared is also very good for increasing the function of the pancreas and fighting cancer, both. You can get the light. NIH recommends 11 inches off with the light. The light's about 700 watts. My recommendation would be the light for 20 minutes at least. And then if you use the sauna, get in the sauna for 20 minutes at least. You can use it longer than the 20 minutes, and you can use it multiple times a day. Then when you deal with cancer, you want to build the immune system. And there's a number of things you can do to help fight cancer. Number one is juicing. Juicing is phenomenal in fighting cancer. Vegetable juice, that is. You can put a little Granny Smith apple with it, but mostly vegetables. Kale, spinach, parsley, carrots, celery, cucumbers, ginger, lemon, beets, cabbage. You know, there's a number of vegetables you can use for juicing. You can do vitamin C, as the lady Scone that was talking about vitamin C therapy. You can just plain take vitamins, as we talked earlier, taking vitamin C up to bowel tolerance and taking as much as you can. You could also add the MSM with it 30 minutes prior to each time. And you want to take it because see, vitamin C has a half-life of only 30 minutes. So you want to take it at least 6 times a day. There's food-grade hydrogen peroxide. Food-grade hydrogen peroxide. Regular hydrogen peroxide is poisonous. Key. That is a stabilizer that's poisonous. So you have to do food-grade hydrogen peroxide. For cancer, they recommend up to 50 drops 3 times a day. Start with 3 drops 3 times a day, increase by 3 drops every day until you get to 50 drops 3 times a day and stay there. You can put it in, because the food hydrogen peroxide is makes you very nauseous. And so you can do things like put it in almond milk. You can take ginger with it. You can take peppermint with it. You can take aloe vera with it to help with the nauseousness. There are people who go up to 75, 100, 125, 150 drops 3 times a day. Very effective, but I don't recommend it. The recommendation's 50. The person may not even be able to do 50 drops 3 times a day. If you can only do 30, that's 30. Better than none. But I have seen food grade hydrogen peroxide extremely effective in addressing cancer. Then you can look at herbs, herbal teas. Padiarco, PAU space D apostrophe space ARCO. PAU space D apostrophe space ARCO. Padiarco is like patenting. Loves to eat cancer cells. Chaparral. Chaparral's nasty. Don't start with chaparral. You won't drink no more teas. Burdock root is another one.
Burdock,
Burdock.
burdock.
Burdock root is another great tool as an anti-cancer. Calendula. Some people say calendula. We call it calendula. There's another. There's one called ASIAC, and ASIAC is a group of herbs that came out of the Canadian Indians, and they used, it's about 4 or 5 herbs. I don't remember exactly. And the Indians told a nurse by Cassie, she turned her name around and called it ASIAC. Very powerful. On the teas, you may want to do them, alternate the ASIAC to all the time. And how do you know what to do? You contact the medical director. What do you want me to do this week? Which one of these? And let me share a story. What's it been now? 2.5 years ago, something like that. I got a call from a girl I went to high school with. She was a year behind me. And she called me and she said her sister was really sick. And so I called her, and she said at Thanksgiving and Christmas, she knew something was wrong. She's a physician. Her husband's a physician. She and her husband, Mary Lou and I, we were all 4 in the same class at SMC. And she knew something was wrong, but she was busy with kids, grandkids. And so 1st of January, she went and got it checked out. She lived in Southern Cal. And they told her that she had 6 months at the most to live. Liver, it was actually breast cancer metastasized to the liver and lymphatic system. And said she would not make it to July. And she said, I have to live. Situations, I have to live. Family loss. I understood that. And we have a responsibility as a parent, a grandparent. And so she said, what do I do? I said, let me send you something. So I sent it to her, and she got it. And she says, what do I do? I said, I don't know. You need to ask God. I said, you're a praying woman. Ask God what you need to do. And call me back and I'll tell you what to do. So she called me back and I shared, she did pretty well everything on there. And that she was impressed she needed to do. And so about halfway mid-spring, she said she was doing, she was doing good. The middle of June, the 2nd week of June, she had an MRI, CT, and PET scan. All 3 showed nothing.
Oh.
Nothing. The next week, physician, surgeon friend of hers said, you need to do a radical double mastectomy because this is serious. And she goes, no, I thank God, I believe God healed me. And he goes, you don't understand, this is serious stuff. You better. So she says, well, you look, if you see something, take care of it. You don't, so yeah, leave me alone. Husband's a pathologist. He's gonna see. So they went in that surgeon went in and did exploratory in 3 different areas, extensive, found nothing but brand new tissue.
Mhm.
When my first cancer person that I dealt with after I left regular healthcare, naturally, 40-year-old lady, she had 8 children. She went to the oncologist in Virginia Beach. He told her she had a type of cancer that was inoperable, never been cured. Never. That type of cancer had never been cured with chemo, radiation, nothing. It was a plumb death sentence. She was nursing her 8th child. Go home. Don't even play with it because she's nursing the 8th child to be ready to die. Went home, called me, said, "Can I come?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." I've never done that treatment. But I was impressed and better take this woman. She says, "I have 8 children and a husband to take care of. I have to live." So come on. So husband, she weans the child, gives the child to the husband to take care of. He's taking care of 8 kids. She comes November and December. This was 2000. So this year will be 23 years ago. So I called a physician down in Florida, Dr. N. And I said, "N, tell me the best thing to do." He said, "Juice her." So he told me how to juice, and he taught me about the Gershon program, and which is 8 ounces every hour on the hour for 12 hours. Now it's 13 hours. On the half hour, every other half hour, drink water, every other half hour, drink a tea, like we just talked about. And so we did the teas that we just talked about. We did the juicing. We did the rebounding. When you jump on a mini trampoline, it increases your immune system 3-fold for 1 hour. So when you jump on a mini trampoline for 5 minutes, your immune system is boosted 300% for up to 1 hour. So every waking hour, jump on the mini trampoline. We did fever treatments, and we talked about that today, where it increases the white cell count 700%. Don't come back for 3 days. We did that 6 days a week, every day with Sal. She did a lot of walking. She had heard that fresh air was good. This is November and December up in Northern Virginia. She slept out on the balcony at night in a sleeping bag. Trying to think. Anything else we would have done for this lady? Pretty well it. For that lady. She went back Thanksgiving to see the family, didn't go to the oncologist, came back. She just went back and came back as she did her juices, didn't eat the turkey or nothing. Came back, she went home a few days before Christmas, went to the oncologist. He said, "It's gone. Plumb gone." She's still alive today. But here's the question. Why? Why do you have the same cancer, the same protocol, and 2 different outcomes? Both of these were the same. They both lived. But I have a lot that there's the other way. I have folks that live. I have folks that don't live. And more folks don't live than live dealing with cancer. I'd rather deal with diabetes every day. That's simple. Cancer's serious. And the question's why? You got kids? Grandkids, nieces, nephews?
No, I had a dog.
Okay. You ever been around kids that say why?
Oh, yeah, foster babies.
Okay. 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old, why?
Yeah.
4-year-old calls Mary Lou the other day, grandson. Why? I'm hearing her talk. She talks to him every day, at least once. And she gives an answer. Why? She gives an answer. Why? She gives an answer. Why? And she finally says, "Someday you'll understand." Well, that's what God does. We're like a 5-year-old. And God says, you're just going to have to trust me. Did your parents ever say, you're just going to have to trust me? Yeah. You'll understand when you get bigger. God says, you'll understand when you get bigger. When you get to heaven, I'll explain it to you. But right now, with your finite mind, you just ain't going to understand. And so we do what we know to do. But tell people I can guarantee you 100% healing from cancer. Now, I got a buddy of mine, he says, Walt, you can't do that. He's a physician. He says, Walt, you can't give those kind of guys guarantees. I said, yes, I can. I can guarantee anybody 100% healing from cancer. But you got to do 4 things. You got to accept Jesus as your Savior every day, not just when you're 8 years old. You've got to become real good friends with him. Because he says when he comes back, he's going to say, I didn't know you because you didn't spend time with me. If you've done something wrong, you got to ask for forgiveness of everybody you've done wrong and of God too. And number 4, get you a Bible, read it. He says, do it, do it. He says, don't do it, don't do it. If you do those 4 things, I guarantee you that you'll be healed. Now, when, whether it's now or it's when Jesus comes back, see, too many times with cancer, people get tunnel vision.
Mhm.
And they're tunnel vision on, how old's your brother? Is the person who has, is that your brother?
One of our
Christ.
brothers from church.
How old is he?
Steve is 50. Yeah, 65, 60.
65. So let's say he lives to 85. How many more years he got?
20.
30. Oh, 65, 20. You're right, 20, 65. 20 years. So where's he gonna put his eggs? 20 years or eternity? And that's what happens. So many people tunnel vision on that 20 years. I say, work on both. Get that relation, those 4 things. And yes, work on now. Don't just say, well, God's just gonna take care of me. No, we gotta do our part. Mrs. White was very clear. There was people then and now that says it was a lack of faith if you did natural remedies. And she said that was doggone wrong. God gave us natural remedies and to use them. And he would bless as he sees fit. And so you work with those and but spend a lot of time on on those 4 items. And that's my answer for that,
Amen.
if that makes sense.
It does. Yeah, it
Okay.
does. Thank you.
If you want to give your email, his email. Stays.
Those cancers, that list I gave to that person. Yeah. Going back to cardiovascular disease. One is the blood thinner. No, I don't recommend going to the co-op as the scout did. Well, what can we do as a blood thinner? Aspirin?
Big aspirin. They
Okay.
give a lot of people the 88, 81 milligram.
Can we do anything natural? There is. Now, I'll have to wait till he comes back. Unless somebody knows something. Pardon?
Isn't garlic a blood thinner?
Garlic's an excellent blood thinner. Yes. Another one is 6 ounces of Concord grape juice 3 times a day.
Oh,
Great blood thinner. Water. Water is one of the best blood thinners. Eat breakfast within 2 hours of awakening. When you don't eat breakfast within 2 hours of awakening, you increase your risk of a heart attack and a stroke by 150%. We talked about that last night because of the platelets. Eat breakfast, it'll thin your blood. Does anybody know the folks over in Dillingham? Who's the Japanese fellow over in Dillingham?
Joe, it's not Japanese.
Japanese guy.
Joe Chidley.
Japanese?
Japanese.
Matthew. Yeah.
And her sister's there also, right?
Yes.
Matthew probably will know.
Oh, he knows. He mentioned it today. I've been calling it nattokinase. That's a little on the countryside, nattokinase. Some people say natural kinase. What's the fellow's name over in Dillingham, this Japanese fellow?
Fred Nishimura?
Yes.
Oh,
So Fred taught me the proper way to say it. It comes from the natto plant. And it's nattokinase. Well, I didn't say it right, but he says it right. He's from Japan. But it comes from the natto plant, the fruit, the natto fruit.
Yeah.
And the natto fruit is an excellent anticoagulant. And you do, one twice a day. And I learned that from, again, Dr. Agatha. I miss her. Tremendous in giving knowledge. So what can you do for as a blood thinner? You can look at nattokinase or nattokinase. You can look at water. You can look at garlic. You can look at the Concord grape juice.
Yum.
Are you referring to the natto fermented?
It's the natto.
Yeah, the fermented natto.
Whether it's fermented in this situation, I can't answer that, but it does come from the natto fruit.
Yeah, that, the fermented one, if you, the delicacy, it smells nasty.
Nasty.
Huh?
Does it smell nasty?
Yeah, it smells nasty.
Is it like Dorian?
That's why.
Dorian's nasty.
Tastes so good.
But it's really, but it's the most, it's, what's the word? It's people in the region will go to it lively, but if you never had it, you just go, no. But I forgot what the.
Like a very bad okra.
Oh,
Okra. The plant, okra, those, how slimy that stuff is.
yes.
It's slimy and it's.
Yeah, slimy and stinks. It's rough.
Well, you know how to fix okra, don't you? So it doesn't, it's not slimy. You cook it, you cook it with,
Try it.
you cook it with beans like lentils, and the sliminess goes away. Or tomatoes. Yeah, the sliminess will go away.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That would be, yeah, you can get them in Sagaya, because that was fermented now,
Okay.
but it's nasty, you gotta.
Or fried okra.
Right. Any other cardiac questions?
Cardiomegaly. I see chest x-rays and we look at cardiomegaly. What causes that? What gets some of it? There it is. You know, that's the size the heart should be according to your fist, right?
Oh, myopathy.
Cardiomegaly.
Megaly.
With the heart's so big.
Yeah.
What?
So what happens is it's lifestyle.
Like,
If they will eat a healthy diet, if they will get their exercise, it's the 8 laws we talked about today. That will cause. Yes,
doctors.
it's just lifestyle.
Yeah.
Who's the teacher?
I was.
Yes.
Pastor.
Did you ever give exams where people took and circled and filled in the circles? And did you ever have a master that you sat on top so you could a whole lot faster, and when it wasn't black, you could use your red?
Yeah.
Okay. 160 years ago, 2 months ago, God gave us the master sheet. And those 8 laws that we talked about today. And it really is the master sheet. Nutrition, exercise, water, fresh air, temperance, rest, trusting God, sunshine. That is the master sheet. And we can argue all day long. We can say, well, that's just what my grandma said. Well, that's just something said today. Well, let me tell you what, Harvard, and I'll read a lot from Harvard every day. The Mayo Clinic, they're coming up with 7 of those. They're just not talking about trusting God. And so that's the key. That's the key. And so we can talk all day long till cows come home on how to specifically address situations, whether it's gangrene or whether it's whatever it is. Those 8. That's the foundation. And then if we need to drill deeper, like the hawthorn berry and the CoQ10 and the dandelion root and the magnesium and the vitamin C and the L-carnitine and the L-arginine, those were extra things that we did, but the foundation is those 8.
I was just wondering, I have several friends who like sleep apnea. Is that reversible? Because they're telling me that the doctor says they're going to be using face masks forever.
According to pulmonologists, The majority of the calls is outside ideal body weight. Are either of these two individuals outside ideal body weight?
Yeah.
Okay.
All of them are.
Okay. For years, pulmonologists have said, come back into ideal body weight and the sleep apnea will go away. But what about someone like this fella around here? He could have sleep apnea.
I know, I see a lot of thin people with it.
The item to look at there is vitamin D. A vitamin D deficiency can cause sleep apnea.
Wow. I have sleep apnea or diagnosed as, and I use the mask. I'm on the very, very low, but the
Yes.
pulmonologist says that as I get older, it's going to get worse. And I stopped taking my vitamin D about a year ago.
Yeah, and it's for two reasons you need to be very careful. Three reasons. One, where you live. Two, the pigmentation. Three, do you work inside or outside?
Oh,
Okay, so let's go back to this right here.
Pastor.
Yeah.
Let's go back to Mayo Clinic. My wife using these guys for research.
Underneath.
And afterwards, you can come up. Look at where your height is. Come up, can you see from there?
No.
Okay. I can barely see from here. So find where you are here.
5'4",
Okay, 5'4",
150.
150. Okay, you're right here. You need to be down to here
Need
at
to
130.
swing.
What? Oh.
According to Mayo Clinic,
134.
5'4", so be between 110 and 140 at the most. But if you take what Duke says, you should be 134.
Oh, my father's goodness.
That right there can be your problem. Yeah.
I'm gonna be skinny.
Now, here's something. I had this guy come in and say, he said, I don't remember what his special, I think it was a cardiologist he'd gone to see. His cardiologist told him he needed to lose some weight. And he says, but doc, everybody, I'm like it. I'm not. He says, doc told him, he says, mister, you need to start looking at other people. The other thing, people will tell me, I haven't weighed that since I was in high school.
Hello.
Did you have diabetes in high school? You have sleep apnea in high school?
No, sir.
And so, but I look scrawny, people tell me. Which would you rather have, scrawny or diabetes?
I'll be strong. And wardrobe.
And the wardrobe.
No, scrawny would be over here.
No, I'm gonna be a better. Okay.
At the
110.
Well, once, yeah, that'd be scrawny.
Okay.
Dr. I got one more question on the vitamin D. I've been there 3 years, but we had like 8 or 9 months of darkness out here, you know, 6 months light, 6 months darkness. Okay, I'm learning new things here. So vitamin D, well, I know like getting outside, if your palms are open, and your eyeballs, and you can get 30 minutes of that a day, you're good. You know, gives you the vitamin.
Not necessarily.
Okay, and then, well, the other thing is this, when it's the darkness, I like, what are these happy lights that
Yes.
they sell around here? Happy
You want
lights,
that.
I got some.
Good.
Really?
You got two things going on there. One, the happy lights are for the serotonin.
Okay.
That's not vitamin D. That's the serotonin we talked about today. Do you work, obviously, you work in a hospital,
Inside, no clinic.
in a clinic,
Inside, indoors.
okay, but you work at a clinic. Do they have a lab at the clinic?
Working a lab and X-ray.
Okay, so you can easily check your blood.
Of course, yeah. Piccolo at the CBC conference.
Absolutely. So you're there. You got it.
Right.
So you ever driven a stick shift?
Standard, I can do it. No.
Okay. How do you know if you're pushing the gas too hard? And if you're letting off, if you got the clutch in, letting off the gas, how do you know if you're doing it right?
Yes, it is.
You listen.
Yeah.
Look at the labs.
It's good.
What's your vitamin D level?
Well, vitamin D's, we have.
That's what you gotta check.
CMP, amylase, the CMP, Tip 13.
Right.
You know.
But D's a separate test.
Yes, Tip 13.
So check the D. So just like if you drive, driving a tractor, driving a car,
Right.
you step on, let off, but your daddy taught you to listen.
Right.
And so you do it like this. And then when you go to stop, you can tell us when you start off, you do it by how you feel and listening.
Yeah.
Well, your lab is going to tell you what your vitamin D is. And so it's not by how much you're in the sun. It's not by anything but what that number is in the lab. And you need to take enough vitamin D to get it up somewhere between 80 and 100.
And if it's not going up, you might need to check your magnesium.
And check your magnesium. Check your magnesium, your K2 and vitamin C. Low vitamin C can make a difference.
Magnesium,
K2,
K2.
K2. If a person has, going back to cardiac, if a person has, let's say they're having problems with calcification of their valves or calcification in the vascular system. The best way to get rid of the calcification is K2. Yeah, but it's also important for the vitamin D. Yes.
Thank you.
I was told, I don't know if it's true by my previous primary care provider in Alaska, we have to take vitamin D year round just because of the way the equator is here. So, and then as we know, we haven't had the most sunny of all 2 summers. Yeah. So I don't know.
It's based on what your blood is. And so, here's an example.
And I get mine tested, but I get mine.
Okay. The NAD 20 years ago came out and said that every vegan should be taking B12. Well, first of all, that's not their position. You tell me I should be taking B12. So I called Dr. Agatha. I said, Dr. Agatha, the NAD is telling us that we're supposed to be taking B12 if we're a vegan. What is your opinion on this? She said, Brother Walt, I see more B12 deficiency in meat eaters than I see in vegans. She says, look at the labs. My B12, and I do not take B12. My B12 runs in the high 1200s. Mary Lou's B12 runs above 1100. It flirts with 1200.
What's ideal?
Ideal, depending on who you look at. They used to say 1,000, but now I'm seeing them 1,200. I've now even seen them as high as 1,300. But I'm right in there. I don't need B12. And so if someone came and told me, which, we got that notification, you're a vegan, you got to have B12. No, I don't need B12. My blood's fine. So look at the numbers. And my friend, who's the physician, and he says, everybody, 5,000 vitamin D, that's all you ever need. Don't take no more. No, that's not true. It's what's the blood level.
What should it do?
You want the vitamin D somewhere between 80 and 100 for immune system and bone density. For cognitive function, according to Dr. Khanna, who's the neurologist who specializes in cognitive, you want it at least 60. But I want better than just that. I want good bones and I want a good immune system. So I'm looking for 80 to 100.
I heard a friend, their doctor said, you need to stop taking D because your levels are above 35.
Oh my.
And so the doctors don't necessarily know the research, the optimal research. I mean, any of us can look at the research and it's 80 to 100.
Right.
And so you got to be willing to look at it.
It is true. When I started out in healthcare, they told us you don't want to be above 32. It was dangerous to be above 32. That was in the early 80s. That was like, it was in the early 80s. They said, don't go over 32.
Yeah, pharmaceuticals, I tell you.
So let me finish with this. We'll come back tomorrow. But why are we doing this? Are we doing this to learn about cardiovascular disease? Pardon? Why are we spending time tonight here?
Well, there is a help message.
What?
Because it's using.
Part of ministry. Yes, that's why we're doing it. Part of ministry. I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
To get to 134 pounds.
Yeah.
It's a ministry. Pointing the sin sick soul to Christ. Let's go back to Oak.
Amen. I love it.
Friday.
Let's go back to Oak. Who's grown up? All right,
Can't grow it.
you can bake it. Boil it, but it's like an old slug on the plate. Cook it in your lettuce or in your or lentils and tomatoes.
It's great.
Oh, it's fine.
A stew.
Yeah. So let's say it's Friday morning and you're flying out somewhere like I usually do on the weekends. I'm going somewhere. And it's Friday morning and my okra's this long. Is it good to pick?
It will be then tomorrow.
I come back late Sunday night, Monday morning, it's this long.
Yeah,
What's wrong? It's too fibers.
it's gonna be woody.
It's too big. I like my okra. Right there. Would you agree? Somewhere in there?
Yeah, well, it depends.
Yeah. Somewhere in there.
Yeah, I always picked it there.
Oh, that's big.
Well, the one year, the first year I grew it, the plants were really short and it was like, there was perfect. The
Uh-huh.
next year I grew it, it was almost 12 feet tall. And it was not fibrous at this long.
Wow.
And then the next year I moved it, the spot in the garden, and it was about in between the two and it was fibrous about there.
In the same top. Oh,
Yeah, it was a red okra.
isn't that amazing?
Here in Alaska.
Yeah, not, that was in Alabama.
Alabama.
They like it hot.
Well, okra right here. Okra's around, so that's probably what it is. Plus I'm up on the mountain.
Yeah.
I'm not in Alabama. But right here's perfect. Right now, okra is right here. It's perfect. And if you wait much longer, it's going to be here and it's too fibrous. Right now, though our rights are getting restricted, it's coming, y'all. It's going to be too late. And we can't share the gospel. And so we're in the time of okra, I call it. That's why I'm out almost every weekend training. If a church wants me to come and teach them to be medical missionaries, I'm going. Because General Conference Fulton, 1901 said, soon there'll be no work done in ministerial lines, but medical missionary work.
Right.
I go out on a weekend to train soldiers. And I take it very serious. We're told that the medical missionary work, a pastor who knows medical missionary work, we're told will be twice as effective as a pastor who does not know medical missionary.
Right.
That's huge, is it not?
Yes.
Now, who's worked in corporate America? Okay. What'd you do?
Moving my arm.
Okay. So in corporate America, if you are 50%, are they going to hire you? Yes, effective. And you're usually not 100% effective on your 50%. So you're probably less than 50%. Inspiration says that pastors and Bible workers, and we should be Bible workers, would you agree?
Yeah.
Are going to be twice as effective if we know the medical missionary work. And you can boost that by 100% effectiveness if you know medical missionary work. I was going to ASI the other day, going through Missouri, and I stopped it. We got the fuel, and I got out, and just as you saw this morning, there's a sheriff's car, and it said, "In God we trust." way to the bathroom, I passed the sheriff and I stopped him. This young boy, he was late 20s, early 30s. I said, I appreciate what's on your car. I said, it's on our police cars and our fire trucks at home. And he says, who we work for, ain't? We work for God. Yes.
Yes.
And so if God says, I want you to do this, then we better do it. So that's why I go most every weekend to try to help people not to be selfish and use it just for themselves, but it's to use as a medical missionary. And we're in the time of ochre. It's right here. And if we wait much longer, we won't have that freedom. Talk to them poor people down in Canada. Talk to a pastor in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
They can't talk like you can.
That's true.
Talk to a literature evangelist in Canada. He can't talk like you can because they're getting strict. It's now hate talk.
Right.
And pretty soon, what we teach in that second book that I gave that lady, Mary Lou gave Ministry of Healing.
Great Converse.
What book did I give?
Great Converse.
That talk's going to be hate talk pretty soon.
Yes.
It already became hate talk in Canada. And it will be in the United States. We got a short period of time. You'll tell what we're doing tomorrow?
We're doing our hands-on workshop. Should be a lot of fun. We're going to be starting at 10 o'clock. And I'm thinking that, if you plan to bring your water jugs and all that, that would be really helpful because I've noticed that I seem to be the only one getting out to refill my cup, and I don't want everybody dehydrated. But we're we're gonna be, the part that I'm really looking forward to is the juicing.
Yeah.
And we're gonna be doing a couple of kinds, and you're demonstrating a couple of kinds.
No, they're going to be doing it.
Well, somebody's gonna be telling you how to do
Yeah,
it.
yeah, I'll be running it through
So
my juice.
we'll be doing the juicing tomorrow and talking about, I believe, different kinds of home remedies that you might have
Herbs.
stuck,
Poultices.
in your cupboard and at home. So I'm gonna.
Do we need to bring our ninja blenders?
I don't think you need to bring your Ninja blender. We have, we'll have 2 juicers. There, if somebody else has a juicer, can always bring it out. But I think if not, we should be okay with 2. And I was gonna ask Alton to be sure and bring your compost bucket. Because juicing always,
Oh,
Alton is the one person that I know that does compost. So Alton will bring his compost bucket.
It's about 3 years.
So
And then just a reminder, we have the thank you basket back here at the back and should be there.
well, let's close with prayer. Master, will you close?
Yeah, let's bow our heads for prayer. Father in heaven, we just thank you and praise you for your wonderful goodness and wonderful grace to us, Lord. We thank you for the wonderful information, Lord. I pray that you would continue to bring to our mind, Lord, the things that are particularly relevant for our situation personally, but also to be able to share with others, Lord, that we might not just hold it all in, but share it around with others. And Lord, I pray that you would help us to grow deeper and deeper in love with you and be more like you all the time. Is my prayer in the precious name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.